All right, here we go. We're going to talk about constitutional underpinnings, influences on the Constitution. But right now, specifically, we're going to look at the Declaration of Independence, kind of where it all gets started. Well, first off, we're talking about King George III. He's ruling the colonies in the 1770s. He decides to, crack down a little bit, so they pass some tax laws, and it annoyed the leaders of the colonies. Think of it this way. You're 21 years old. Your parents haven't ruled you for 3 years, 4 years. And now they decide to come back and rule, try to influence or take control of your life. You're not going to like that. It's called salutary neglect here. So that's what King George tries to do, and the colonial leaders decide to rebel. Now, we've got some inspiration. We've got to go back to world history 3 years ago for you. Some of you 4 years ago if you took ESO. This was what you first started out with, the Enlightenment. These were the philosophers of that time. They had some radical ideas. They believed in natural God-given rights. So basically that means the minute you out your mama, you have certain God-given rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the right to own property. Another idea is the social contract. And this is between the democratic government and the people. And we're going to talk about that as well. First one is John Locke. All men by nature are equal in that equal right that every man hath to his natural freedom. Okay, basically what does this mean? People are born free and equal, except slaves and women. All right? And he also believed that people are obligated, that you must rebel when the rule of kings did not respect the consent of the governed. What does that consent of the governed mean? It means the people give permission to the government to rule them. And again, you're going to see a lot of these ideas in the Declaration of Independence. Another one, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and his idea of the social contract. Again, influenced by John Locke. But basically he's saying people give up certain rights to be free in a society and safe in a society. Example here is the Patriot Act. This happened after 9/11, that people gave up certain freedoms to the government so that they could be safe from terrorists. Montesquieu, his big idea is separation of powers, and is divided into 3 distinct areas: executive, legislative, and judicial. Might sound familiar. I really hope it does. The sun never sets on the British Empire. What is this? Well, it's an old saying, and basically means that the British Empire was so large, the sun was always shining on some piece of British property. And I got a map for that. But let's look at North America. The United States, the colonies, they had a lot of natural resources. Fish, up in New England. Timber, great growing soil. All of that. Maintaining a far-flung empire requires money. Britain didn't have it. So they tried to tax the colonists to get that revenue, money. For example, you've got Sugar Act, Stamp Act, and the Tea Act. These were all ways to get money. You also have to remember that prior to 1763, Great Britain said, don't move west of the Appalachian Mountains. The colonists, being knuckleheads, moved. They got attacked by the Indians. And then screamed to the British government, please come and save us. They did. And then Britain was like, hey, come on, we had to spend money to save you because you didn't listen. Help pay the bill. Well, the colonists didn't like that. So here we go. You see here Australia. So whenever the sun is shining, it's always going to be shining on some piece of British property. No taxation without representation. Some opposed it on a practicality, economic, you're taking money out of my pocket. Others were principled in that they didn't have representation in Parliament. And Parliament passes these taxes. Nobody's speaking up for the colonists going, I don't think that's a good idea. Tensions increase when, again, these colonists refuse to abide by any new laws. Think back to that salutary neglect. You left us alone for so many years, now you're coming back at us. And protesters were tried and convicted. Olive branch petition, we tried to make peace. Hey, will you fix the problems, King George, and we'll abide by the rules? And he rejected, said nope. And then finally, Declaration of Independence. You've got to keep this in mind. This is a Dear George letter that we're breaking up with you. We've already got tensions between 1774, 1775, battles of Lexington and Concord. The American Revolution has already started. If you fight back against your government, you are a traitor. You do not deserve the help of any other country. That's how we're looking. So in 1776, the Continental Congress says, hey, come up with an official statement as to why we're doing this. Thomas Jefferson, old TJ, was the primary writer, and they approved it on July 4th, 1776. Why does that day sound familiar? Now, like I said, this is a Dear George letter. We had to justify why we were leaving. That's what this is all about. We needed the help of other countries. So, really, there's 4 parts to the Declaration. Why we're writing it, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have, kept them together for so many years. Then there's a theory of government, of what government should do. And we'll talk about that. You'll read that. The list of grievances. The king has done this. He has done this against us. He refused to do this. Kind of like when you guys make a breakup text. Dear Susie, you low down so-and-so 4-flushing snake in the grass. I don't want to be your boyfriend anymore. Here's why. Okay? Same thing. And then finally, at the very end, says, we're independent. So this is our first document that we've got to know. You're going to have to learn it, live it, love it, need it, you want more of it.